Yes, as I said, it's great to be here and have the opportunity to talk about some of the things going on at CSIRO, and it's really important, I think, to highlight that we're trying to build a two-way network. We learn from you, you learn from us, because one of the things for us is scientists are really great at coming up with problems to solve that aren't really problems. So it's great to have this sort of network to help us benchmark what we do and how we do some things. So the Future Protein Mission is part of a big program of packages at CSIRO that we've set with trying to tackle big problems at scale. And so the mission was set up in 2021 in September, so we've just gone 12 months old. So what I'm going to do is just have a chat about the framework we've set and what we're trying to do and where we see ourselves going. So the thing is, why do we want to do this? The first thing is, if you think about the population growth, we've got 9 billion people, 9.8 billion people by 2050. If you think about population growth, combine that with lack of available land to expand any further, if you look between 1961 and 2016, the actual amount of land to grow food on per person dropped by 55%. The population is going to increase by a third in the next 28 years. So that's going to go down again. We also need 71% more food. And if you think about protein, not food, the numbers are saying that we need 100% more protein in the next 28 years. So it's a real challenge for us to actually do that. Why and what are the drivers behind this? I mean, we've got population growth, we've got social conscience, and it's not that meat is bad, it's not meat, We are having a segment of the population saying, I don't want to eat meat. And part of our role at CSIRO is actually to provide choices to the people for what they want to consume and what they want to do. Meat is not bad, just let me get that up clear right up front. I love my steaks. But we're also seeing chronic disease and ageing. And you think about nursing home, more people moving into nursing home. One of the biggest issues there is actually getting enough protein into people. They can't chew, it's in the wrong format. So we've got a problem there with healthy ageing. So they're the drivers that we're thinking. The opportunities are, Australia already has a reputation as clean, green, high quality products. So let's play on the sustainability. Let's, rather than export, let's add value, export that added value, make more money, more jobs on shore, and focus on that health and wellbeing market. Finally, we want the nutrition, the challenges. We are moving away from meat. We know how good meat is for you in terms of nutritional substance, the protein substance, your iron, and the taste and the flavour. Most of the plant-based proteins don't stack up yet at the moment, So there's a challenge there around nutritional, around taste, and also the technology to scale. It's, we can do it at a small scale. It's not so easy to take a factory and scale it to a farm. So we've got to think about how we do that. And I'm speaking from the plant protein side. We are working in other areas, which I'll come to. That was a global context. What about Australia? 1/3 of Australians are consciously limiting their meat consumption now. This is real. An additional 10% have gone meat-free. One of the fastest growing segments in the supermarkets recently has been vegetarian and even vegan. So it's there, it's consumer driven, we can't ignore it. The other thing is we're seeing more people saying they want to eat less meat. And surprisingly, when you say 20% of people now are identifying as flexitarian, 20% fewer people are saying that they're eating as much meat. It's pretty simple maths, 20% up, 20% down. And that's actually started to show out in the figures. If you look at red meat consumption in Australia from 2011 to 2021, the scale is very skewed. It's not, that's only 10% of the total value, but there's been a drop of about 10% of red meat consumption per person in Australia over that period. At the same time, we're seeing more people saying that they're eating less meat because of the impact of diet, which is the blue line. When I say what do we mean by protein, it's a protein mission. We're agnostic to the form of protein. It is meat protein, plant protein, non-traditional. We don't like saying alternative forms of protein, we call them complementary because the pie is growing and there's enough space for everybody in that pie. So we're not competing. That's why we say complementary. So one of the things that we've done is actually let's map out, go to industry, go to people, let's talk about where they see the opportunities are and map out a blueprint to where we need to invest in science, technology and infrastructure so we can actually capture this market, be productive, profitable, sustainable and be globally competitive. We have to remember that we cannot do this at a price that's not competitive with the rest of the world. We got economists involved and we started mapping the opportunity. If you look at where we are now, the current state is the protein sector is about $56 billion of value to the economy. If it continues growing at the current rate, by 2030 it's probably $76 billion. In the model, if we capture some of these opportunities, we can actually turn that by 2030 into an $89 billion market. So that's a $13 billion opportunity if we invest and work together to bring it together. It's a teamwork. The other thing that you see down the bottom, it also creates about 10,000 extra jobs. I know you're all out there going, where do I find 10,000 more people at the moment? But it is something that we have to do. We cannot grow these markets if we don't have the people. So in there, we've identified 5 science and technology focus areas where we think that we need to focus to capture the market. The first one of these is actually strengthening product integrity and market access. And you'll see all 5 of these, I've heard them at least 3 or 4 times today in reference to different parts and different markets. So it's not a new message. I'm speaking to the converted already. Opportunities, integrity in the red meat sector. Actually guaranteeing that the product someone is buying overseas is Australian red meat and that they can say where it's come from and it's not the counterfeit. This allows exports to expand because you've got that market, you've got that guarantee. Optimising quality and the cost competitive. Think about plant-based proteins, an area that I'm in. We need to actually improve the quality of the ingredients that are being created to make those products. But at the same time, we need crop breeding and pre-breeding to make sure it's cost competitive. There's no point increasing the protein content 50%, but having the yield go down 75%. None of you are going to grow that. We've got to be very conscious of the whole chain. We have to maximise our resource and the circularity. I mean, red meat co-products. In the animal protein section, I'll touch on it. There's a lot of work going on. How do we use the waste from the co-products from red meat? What can we value add them into so it's not a waste product, it's actually a profit margin? We're thinking in the insect space for protein sources and feed as well. We've also got to think about enabling high growth sectors to expand rapidly, and there are some opportunities out there. And again, Dan, I think I don't need to touch on this anymore. You highlighted that perfectly, that it's already happening. People are out there doing it, white flesh fish. But there's also the plant-based products. Can we do what Dan's done with barramundi with plant-based proteins? And the final one is the novel production systems, precision fermentation and also cultivated meats. They're out there, they're coming. We need to understand what the opportunities for Australia are and whether we can play in that space or not. Are we competitive? So the roadmap itself is sort of a 100-page document. There's a link there. I'm not finished. I'm going to keep you from that drink a bit longer. But that's how to find the roadmap if you're interested and to see the thinking of where we're going. So what's the Future Protein Mission doing? I said there's a $13 billion opportunity by 2030. We want to capture 10 billion of that. We recognise that's an aggressive model. We're not going to go right at the top end of aggressive models. So we want to capture $10 million. It's science-driven, it's technology-driven, it's innovation, but it's an industry-wide approach. The other thing, and down the bottom, there's all the reports done. There's 6, 7 reports there, all pointing to the same value. The other thing you'll see there is we put the consumer first. It's consumer-centric. We have to be developing products that consumers want, and they have very strict criteria. You talk to the food industry, taste is king. Who goes and buys a product they don't like for a second time or a third time or a fourth time in case they like it? It has to be price competitive. We have to meet their credentials. We then got to move along the chain there's 5 points on that chain. We have to add value at every single one of those points. If there's no value for even one person in that chain, it's not a product that we can deliver because someone has no reason to take it up over what they're doing now. So in terms of where we're going, I said there's 3 work packages. I lead the plant protein work package. That's why you get my ugly mugshot up there. But we want to transform commodities to high-value protein products underpinned by nutrition and sustainability. We're already seeing this. You've got Australian plant proteins, you've got wide open agriculture already setting up. Unigrain have just announced that they're setting up a dry fractionation facility. It's happening already. So we want to actually move this forward as fast as possible. So we want to improve the grain composition, and thinking about free from crops. We've got to enhance the sensory attributes and improve the functionality. Some of these proteins are actually really hard to work with, or the matrix they're in is hard to work with. And there's a lot of bioactives in plants. If we can actually identify them, you can have what we call health by self, that your diet is actually better for you, but you don't know it. I'm just going to flip. And this is just a reminder, down the left, these are the crops we're looking at. In CSIRO, we're specifically looking at lupin, chickpeas, and soybean, because that's where our expertise is, but we want an Australia-wide system. And where other people have the expertise, we don't want to play in their space, we want them to come on board on the journey. And we're applying all the different technologies that we have to get consumer outcomes. An example that's already come through from CSIRO, I'm sure many of you are aware of V2 Foods. And this is a company set up to deliver a plant-based burger initially. And it's a completely new model for science in CSIRO. We had an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, we had a company wanting the product, and it was actually Hungry Jack's involved, so we were already leveraging their supply chain. The product development happened in CSIRO, in our Werribee facility. The actual first product was developed, not only developed there, commercial production happened there. It was less than 12 months from product concept to delivery to market of the first plant-based burger in Hungry Jack's. V2 are now expanding. They've gone through, I think, their second or third round of capital raising since they started, and they've raised $187 million of capital in the last 3 years. So, we see that as a success story. What about animal proteins? We see a major role here, and that's Artie Tobin, who leads the animal protein work. She's based in Brisbane. We want to enhance the profitability and sustainability of traditional protein sectors. We want to diversify, it's late in the day, the meat products, value add to co-products, development of hybrid or blended products. So we're talking about products that might be 50% animal-based and 50% plant-based. So you get the nutrition, you get the taste, but you also lever on consumers' want for what they perceive is a more sustainable and less environmentally damaged. And note I said consumers want. So we also think sustainability frameworks, aqua feeds, and also, as I said, the white flesh fish industry. These are some examples from this one's an example from overseas where this is already happening, and these are like 50-50 blend of milk and almond milk or oat milk. Or, so you've got this product, the market's there, it's happening. We can't ignore it. We can ignore it, and we don't capture it. The other one, this is convenience without compromise, called Perfect Day. They're synthetically producing casein and adding it to oat milk to increase the protein content and the nutritional value. So you've got something that's a bit similar to milk but has more protein, less sugar. The third part is novel protein production systems, and Thomas van Herk leads this. He's Canberra based. And we want to develop new innovative industries that upcycle no or low value waste streams into high value protein products. And we're thinking waste, co-product industries, insect protein, and also fermentation. In terms of fermentation, people go, oh, fermentation, it's this new scary thing. Who had a beer or a wine last night? You all have products of fermentation. It's just how we use it now. I mean, it's not to produce an end product necessarily. When you go to precision fermentation, we're actually thinking flavours, pigments, enzymes. So how can we use that to value add? So one of the other companies that's come out of CSIRO called Nourish is trying to make the fats that give meat its flavour using precision fermentation, then you add them to plant-based burgers, so you get that meat-like flavour, which is still lacking in a lot of the plant-based products. Another example coming out of CSIRO is a company called Eat and Brew, and this is essentially to produce milk in precision fermentation. So you're producing the milk, it's exactly the same as milk, but it's done in fermenters and it doesn't have lactose. Our ultimate goal is to create this whole of chain industry that's based on innovation, but it also creates choice for all consumers. And we can see if you want to have your meat, you've got your meat. If you want to go high tech and have your cultivated meats up the other end, you can. But we really think there's a lot of work to be done playing in the middle, where you've got blended, which is mixing the two together, you've got plant-based burger, or you've got hybrid, where you're bringing components of meat and plant together into the same component, into the same burger. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much.